Controlled, analytical, authority. You have a strategy. You know the rules. You have seen the setups work. You have had weeks where everything clicked, where the process felt effortless, where discipline came naturally and the results reflected it. And then something shifted. Not the market, not the strategy. You. Suddenly, the rules that felt automatic feel negotiable. The stops that felt easy to honor feel painful to take. The patience that came naturally feels impossible to maintain. And you sit there looking at the same charts, using the same system, watching yourself executed completely differently than you did last week. That gap between the trader you are on your best days and the trader you are on your worst is not a strategy problem. It is a stability problem. And stability is the most under-addressed issue in trading psychology, because everyone talks about discipline, everyone talks about mindset, everyone talks about following the rules. But almost nobody talks about why the same trader follows the rules precisely one week and abandons them completely the next. That is what this video is about. Not motivation, not rules, the architecture of consistency, and why yours keeps collapsing. Part 1. Defining inconsistency. Let's be precise about what inconsistency actually is, because most traders misdiagnose it. They assume inconsistency means their strategy is flawed, that the system does not work, that the edge is not real. So they change systems, they buy new courses, they rebuild their approach from scratch. And 3 months later, the same pattern emerges. Good weeks followed by bad weeks, disciplined sessions followed by impulsive ones, clean execution followed by inexplicable rule breaking. Because the problem was never the system. Inconsistency is not randomness. It is not bad strategy. It is variability in behavior. Your strategy may remain constant, your risk parameters may remain constant, your charts, your timeframes, your confluences, all constant, but your decision-making state does not remain constant, and that variability, in state, not in system, is what produces unstable results. This distinction is everything, because if the problem is the system, the solution is a new system. But if the problem is the state you bring to the system, no new system will fix it. The same trader who blew the rules on Tuesday will blow them on a new system by the following Tuesday, because the rules changed, the trader did not. That is the real problem, and that is where the real work begins. Part 2. State-dependent performance. Human behavior is state-dependent. This is not philosophy, it is neuroscience. Your execution quality, the precision of your entries, the discipline of your exits, the patience of your waiting, fluctuate directly with your emotional and physiological condition. When you are calm, rested, and emotionally neutral, your prefrontal cortex is fully online, planning, assessing, executing with precision. When you are stressed, fatigued, or emotionally activated, the prefrontal cortex is suppressed, the amygdala takes over, and the amygdala does not trade well. It rushes entries, it widens stops, it cuts winners early, it holds losers too long. We have covered this mechanism in previous videos, but here's the dimension we have not fully explored. You do not arrive at your trading desk in the same state every day. Some days you slept well, some days you did not. Some days yesterday's session was clean and your confidence is grounded. Some days yesterday's session left a residue of frustration you have not processed. Some days your personal life is calm, some days it is not. And all of those variables, sleep, emotional residue, personal stress, physical state, directly affect the quality of your prefrontal cortex function, which directly affect the quality of your trading decisions. Let's make this concrete. Day 1, you slept well, you are not carrying emotional weight from previous sessions, you sit down focused and neutral. A setup forms, you enter cleanly. Price moves against you briefly. Your stop is hit. You exit without hesitation. You move on. Day 2. Yesterday was a losing day, and the frustration is still present. You did not sleep well. You sit down carrying weight you have not acknowledged. The same setup forms. You enter. Price moves against you. Your stop is close. But instead of exiting cleanly like yesterday, something pulls at you. You hesitate. You widen the stop slightly. Just a little more room. Price continues against you. The loss expands. Same system, same setup, different state, different result. That's inconsistency. Not a strategy failure, a state failure. And until you address the state, the results will keep fluctuating. Part 3. Rule drift. The slow erosion. Inconsistency rarely arrives as a dramatic breakdown. It arrives as rule drift, gradual, subtle, almost invisible until the damage is done. You do not abandon your system, you modify it slightly. A slightly later entry because you wanted more confirmation. A slightly wider stop because the level felt important. An early exit because you wanted to lock in the gain. A skipped trade because something felt off. Each individual adjustment feels reasonable. Each one feels like judgment rather than deviation. But here is what is happening beneath the surface. Every time you adjust a rule under pressure, you are weakening the boundary of that rule. You are teaching yourself that the rules are negotiable, that under certain conditions, stress, uncertainty, frustration, overconfidence, the rules can be bent. And once the brain learns that rules are negotiable, it will find reasons to negotiate them constantly. 1 slightly wider stop this week, 2 slightly wider stops next week, full stop removal the week after. The drift is incremental. The damage is compounding. Professionals operate within tight behavioral boundaries precisely because they understand this. They know that flexibility under pressure is not wisdom. It is the beginning of instability. The rules exist not because the market requires them. The rules exist because the trader requires them. They are a structure built to contain the emotional variability that is inevitable in any human being who participates in markets. Remove the structure and the variability expands. Expand the variability and the results become unpredictable. Unpredictable results destroy confidence. Destroyed confidence produces more emotional activation. More emotional activation produces more rule drift. The cycle feeds itself. And it all begins with one slightly wider stop. Part 4. Outcome-based confidence. There is a pattern that runs through almost every inconsistent trader. Their confidence is tied to recent results. After a winning week, they feel sharp, clear-headed, in sync with the market. Their execution in this state is precise. Their patience is genuine. Their rule adherence is natural. After a losing week, they feel uncertain, doubtful, disconnected. Their execution in this state is hesitant. Their patience collapses. Their rules feel like obstacles rather than tools. The same trader, the same system, 2 completely different versions of execution, all because confidence was built on outcome rather than process. This is outcome-based confidence, and it is inherently unstable. Because outcomes fluctuate. Even with a genuine edge, losing streaks are statistically inevitable. A system with a 60% win rate will still produce strings of 4, 5, 6 consecutive losses, not because the edge disappeared, because probability is not linear. If your confidence depends on recent wins, a normal losing streak will erode it completely. And eroded confidence produces exactly the kind of hesitant, rule-bending, emotionally reactive trading that extends the losing streak further. The professional model of confidence is entirely different. It is process-based. The professional asks not, "Did I win?" but "Did I execute correctly?" If the rules were followed precisely and the trade lost, confidence remains intact because the process worked. The outcome was unfavorable, but the execution was sound. And sound execution repeated consistently produces positive results over time. If the rules were broken and the trade won, the professional does not celebrate. They recognize that a winning outcome from a flawed process is dangerous because it reinforces the wrong behavior. Process-based confidence is stable. It does not rise and fall with the market. It is anchored to something the trader controls completely, their behavior. And behavior is the only variable in trading that is entirely within your power. Part 5. Emotional memory and contamination. Past trades influence current behavior. More than most traders acknowledge. A significant loss from 3 days ago is still present in your nervous system, even if you have moved on intellectually. Even if you have reviewed the trade, accepted it, and told yourself it is behind you. The body holds residue. The nervous system remembers. And that memory, that emotional residue, contaminates the neutrality required for clean execution. A recent large loss increases risk aversion. You begin protecting capital so carefully that you miss valid entries. You cut winners too early to secure something before it disappears. You hesitate at stops because another loss feels unbearable. A recent large win increases aggression. You begin believing your judgment is sharper than it is. You increase size beyond your plan. You hold trades longer than the structure justifies. Both states distort neutrality. Both states produce execution that deviates from the process. And both states are invisible to the trader experiencing them. Because emotional memory does not announce itself. It does not tell you, your decision-making is currently being influenced by a loss from Tuesday. It simply shifts your perception slightly, makes one trade look more dangerous than the data suggests, makes another look more promising than it is. And those slight perceptual shifts, invisible, cumulative, emotionally driven, are the fingerprints of inconsistency. True consistency requires emotional reset between trades, not just between sessions, between trades. A deliberate return to neutral after every closed position, before the next setup is assessed, before the next entry is considered. That reset is not automatic. It is a practice. And like all practices, it requires intention. Part 6. Identity Instability. Here is the deepest layer, the one most traders never reach. Inconsistency is often rooted not in strategy or emotion, but in identity. Specifically, an identity that fluctuates with short-term results. After a profitable week, you feel like a trader, capable, sharp, legitimate. After a losing week, you feel like an imposter, uncertain whether you belong in this profession at all. Those identity shifts are more consequential than they appear, because identity drives behavior. When you feel capable, you execute with confidence. You trust your process. You honor your rules without internal resistance. When you feel like an imposter, you second-guess everything. You override signals. You seek external validation. You alternate between excessive caution and desperate aggression. And all of that behavioral volatility traces back not to the market, but to how you feel about yourself as a trader on any given day. Stable identity produces stable behavior. An identity anchored not to results, which fluctuate, but to process, which you control. The trader who says, "I am someone who follows my process precisely regardless of outcome," has an identity that does not bend under losing streaks. their behavior does not change because their self-concept does not change. Their consistency is not dependent on the market being favorable. It is dependent on their commitment to their own standards. That is the model. And building it requires deliberately separating who you are as a trader from what your account did this week. Those are not the same thing, and confusing them is the root of more inconsistency than any strategy flaw ever produced. Part 7. The Professional Model. Some of the most consistent performers in professional trading share a common behavioral architecture. They do not leave consistency to willpower or motivation, they engineer it. Before the session, they assess their state, not the market, themselves. Are they carrying emotional residue from the previous session? Are they fatigued? Are they overconfident from a recent winning streak? Are they entering the session in a condition that supports clean execution? If the answer to any of these questions raises concern, they adjust before trading begins. Reduce size, limit trade frequency, sometimes step away entirely. Because they understand something that most retail traders never internalize. A compromised state produces compromised execution, and compromised execution, compounded over time, destroys edge regardless of how sound the strategy is. They also separate the grading of their performance from profit and loss entirely. At the end of each session, they ask one question: did I follow my process? Not, did I make money? Not, was today a winning day? Did I follow my process? A session with 2 losses and perfect rule adherence is graded as a success. A session with 2 wins and multiple rule violations is graded as a failure. That grading system, counterintuitive as it sounds, is what maintains behavioral consistency through the inevitable variance of markets, because it removes the market's ability to destabilize confidence. The market can take your money on a given day. It cannot take your process grade. That remains entirely within your control, and control, specifically the consistent exercise of it, is what builds the stable equity curves that separate professionals from everyone else. Part 8. The Stability Framework. Let's make this actionable, because understanding inconsistency is only useful if it changes behavior. The first tool is the pre-session state assessment. Before charts open, before price is watched, before any trade is considered, assess your state honestly. Rate your emotional neutrality from 1 to 10. Rate your physical energy from 1 to 10. Rate your confidence grounding. Is it based on recent process or recent wins from 1 to 10? If any score falls below 6, adjust your trading plan for the session accordingly. Smaller size, fewer trades, tighter criteria, or no trading at all. This assessment takes 3 minutes. It can save an entire session. The second tool is the behavior scorecard. At the end of every session, grade your behavior adherence, not your profit and loss. Did you enter only when criteria were fully met? Did you honor every stop without adjustment? Did you follow your position sizing rules precisely? Did you avoid trading outside your defined hours or conditions? Score each category. Track it weekly. Over time, your behavior scorecard reveals patterns that your profit and loss statement hides. You will begin to see the direct correlation between high behavior scores and strong results, and low behavior scores and poor results. That correlation, made visible, is one of the most powerful motivators for behavioral change available to a trader. The third tool is the emotional reset protocol. After every closed trade, win or loss, pause for 60 seconds before assessing the next setup. Breathe. Return to neutral. Ask, Am I approaching the next trade fresh, or am I carrying something from the last one? 60 seconds of intentional reset between trades is not excessive. It is the difference between clean sequential decision-making and contaminated chain reactions. The fourth tool is the identity statement. Write one sentence that defines who you are as a trader, not what results you want, who you are. Example, I am a trader who follows my process precisely and accepts all outcomes with neutrality. Read it before every session, not as motivation, as a reminder of the identity you are building, because identity, stated and reinforced consistently, shapes behavior more durably than any rule. Review your last month honestly. Were your worst days market-driven or state-driven? Did price behave unusually, or did you behave unusually? Did the strategy fail, or did the execution of the strategy fail? Inconsistency leaves fingerprints. They are always behavioral. The market does not make you inconsistent. Your state makes you inconsistent. Your identity makes you inconsistent. Your emotional memory makes you inconsistent. Your outcome-dependent confidence makes you inconsistent. All of these are internal. All of these are addressable. The traders who build long-term equity curves are not the ones with the best strategies. They are the ones with the most stable execution. Day after day, session after session, regardless of what the previous trade produced, regardless of what the account balance shows, regardless of how the market behaved. Stable execution. That is the standard. That is what you are building toward. One session at a time, one rule honored at a time, one identity reinforced at a time. Your growth as a trader begins with self-awareness. The rest follows. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, control your mind.